Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com. It's time for another episode of Ask the Lawyers. Today's topic is something, well, we all think about, especially this time of year, our money, and specifically as it relates to taxes and what to do if you get a shock when you fill out those forms. Our expert today is David Shuster of the Shuster Law Firm, which serves the greater Dallas area. David practices bankruptcy law and also assists his clients in deciding their best options if the IRS is coming after them for back taxes. David, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Is this time of year, tax time, is this a especially busy time of year for you guys?
It actually is. There's a spike. You know, people are getting their refunds, and so they're able to pay their attorney to do the bankruptcy or whatever other legal service they need. So yeah, there's definitely a spike of business between March, April, May.
So let's say people are filling out their tax forms and they realize, uh-oh, I can't pay this. I can't pay this. What do they do next?
I'll tell you, Jack, the most important thing right off the bat for them to know is to file the tax return anyway, right? The real problem occurs when they realize that they cannot pay. And so for whatever reason, they think, well, geez, I shouldn't turn this in right away. So the first thing you need to do is file that return. It's very important. There's additional penalties and interest that are going to accrue if you don't file the return. So, it's a debt like any other debt. So once the return is filed, then you can begin to consider your options through your CPA or contacting an attorney if necessary.
Very few things in life actually get better if you ignore them, and the IRS never goes away.
Well, that's exactly right.
Now, at what point is there a dollar figure where there's like a threshold where it makes sense to contact an attorney such as yourself?
Well, there's not a specific dollar threshold, actually. If it's pretty small, then you want to consider it in relation to what else is going on in the household, right? Are there other debts, and just put it into the piece of the pie if it's a relatively small amount. There's not a specific minimum, and even a relatively small amount, I mean, if you ignore it long enough, is not just going to go away either, obviously, right? And it can end up being a garnishment of a bank account or some sort of lien filed. So definitely, if you have a small amount that you intended to deal with early on but didn't, and time has progressed, you probably should contact an attorney to find out what can be done before they freeze your account or try to garnish your wages or something like that.
Even that small amount, by the time interest and penalties accrue, can grow into a big amount.
That's exactly right. It snowballs.
And what about back taxes? Let's say I have back taxes from years ago. Is the IRS, do they still negotiate? Is that something that you can do? Do they still do that sort of thing?
They do that sort of thing, indeed, and that is something that my office can handle. They have a program called an offer in compromise. The IRS website is actually a surprisingly good resource to find out some information, particularly with offer in compromise. It sends you through some interview questions. Essentially, like bankruptcy, it's an option that will be contingent on what the person who owes has going on in their life. Do they own assets? What kind of income do they have, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of, or if they have okay income, what kind of expenses do they have, right? And so it's really the same sort of considerations for bankruptcy, but it's a totally different option than bankruptcy. And so if it seems like this is a good program, then we might help you out with just something like that as opposed to a bankruptcy, and you could reduce your tax liability potentially to zero in an offer in compromise.
Now, you mentioned the B word, bankruptcy. How are you able to, does your tax burden go away in bankruptcy? How does that work?
It does. Back taxes can be discharged in bankruptcy if they have accrued for over 3 years. The threshold requirement is that it's a 3-year-old tax debt, okay? If you can, if you filed your returns again and it's not an unfiled return and you have this debt that has accrued for a 3-year period, then it is eligible for a discharge, which is very nice. It's a way obviously out of the debt completely, and many people are very surprised to learn that this is the case, and it's as an attorney, it's a very equally rewarding thing to see somebody that has for them an insurmountable tax burden. They're not eligible for an offer in compromise, to be able to discharge that. I still remember I don't know if it was the first or second time that I did it, the gentleman was in tears really after his bankruptcy hearing, knowing that was going to go away.
I would imagine that's a process, though, that you really ought to have an attorney help walk you through.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you want to. I mean, most bankruptcy attorneys offer free consultations, like my office. Yeah, you definitely, if there's any question about if you're eligible for a discharge or what to do, get an attorney's advice for sure.
How are taxes treated? Are they treated differently as far as Chapter 11 or Chapter 13 bankruptcies? Does it make a difference?
If a tax debt is eligible for a discharge, then you can do that in a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. Oh, yeah. So there's different rules in the two bankruptcies as to how much debt you can discharge based on your personal situation, what property you own and what kind of income you have. But again, if you meet the requirements to discharge a tax debt, you can do it in a 7 or a 13, right? And if you don't meet those requirements, you can still file the bankruptcy to get the automatic stay and potentially freeze the accruing interest and penalties on the debt, so it just stops snowballing, right? And so, even if I'd say I'm not eligible for the tax discharge, you still may want to move sooner than later. I mean, don't ever wait and say, oh, geez, if I wait this 3-year period, then maybe I can be eligible. I mean, you want to talk to an attorney right away, because if they escalate things sooner, then you've got a lien filed or you've got a garnishment that occurs, and so. In some instances, it does make sense to wait, all other things being equal, but you want to talk to an attorney, see if you can discharge it, and if you can't, the benefits of filing anyway.
What if someone's considering filing for bankruptcy, but they know they've got a tax refund coming? What's your advice there? Should they wait?
Every situation is different. The federal bankruptcy exemptions are a set of rules that are applied to what property someone can keep in bankruptcy, right? And also in Texas, you have a different set of exemptions. And so in the federal set of exemptions, you can exempt a wild card portion of money. Each individual can exempt $11,000 and change. And so it just depends on the amount and whether you're using the federal or state exemptions. But you can get the refund first and then file, or you can file and have the refund coming in while you're in bankruptcy, as long as the attorney has exempted it. And so, after you speak with your attorney and you found out, hey, okay, I can keep this much of my return, or I can't keep any of it. Yeah, file your taxes, get the refund back. And again, slightly the reason for an increase in business is people getting those refunds and being able to pay off their bankruptcy. But yeah, I mean, if you talk to an attorney and you plan it properly, I mean, you're not going to file bankruptcy and then find out, oh, geez, I'm going to get a big refund and that's going to go to a trustee. And then, so the earlier you can talk to an attorney in the process, the better off you're going to be.
And you mentioned that first initial consultation, that there's no charge for that. Should someone be prepared to bring in stacks of papers and all that sort of stuff at that initial consultation, or is it more just talking things through?
Good question. Attorneys probably have different styles. The way I like to do it in particular, and it's the way I've always done it, is just to come in here and talk and find out what's going on. Sometimes if you put too much pressure in that, okay, well, to meet with me, a lot of people don't meet with their accountants because they know that they don't have all the paperwork to bring to the CPA. So really, I advise just getting on the phone, talk to me. I'll get the person in here. We'll get the facts as we know them, as we have them before us, straight. And then the client or potential client can go back and get the detailed information. Okay, we can order tax transcripts if you don't have copies of your tax returns. So, rather than tell the client to go fishing for all this stuff when they don't know that we can get it, we can help them get it quicker. The first consultation, we want to just go over things and exchange information, make sure we're comfortable with one another, and the client is just on board for this relief. And then now he or she leaves my office with that checklist. Okay, now here's what I have to do.
It's funny you mentioned the word relief. I'm guessing this process is a relief for so many people after they get to talk to you and find out maybe it's not as bad as they thought, or maybe it is as bad, but still there's relief ahead.
It's still one of my most favorite things about practicing in bankruptcy law, really. I mean, just the relief that they express immediately from leaving the office, you can tell that there's a weight lifted off their shoulders, right? And so, as not to mention, when the case is over, sometimes as quick as 90 days for a Chapter 7, the relief then, like the story of the gentleman that was literally in tears. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what it's about. And it's what I really enjoy about bankruptcy law, navigating the technical rules, getting a relief, put them in a much better situation they were in when they first came in.
Anything else you want people to know about bankruptcy, and specifically as it relates to taxes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, just reverting back to the beginning of our conversation, to know that, not to delay. The problem's not going to get any better. Don't put it off. And even if you filed your taxes, don't delay in talking to an attorney if you still owe money, because there's escalation that the IRS will participate in, a lien. And then once they file a lien, then, oh, okay, well, I could have done something, but they filed a lien, so now it's attached to my home. And that will limit your options. It's not to say you're without options for sure, but then, so the theme is really just to not wait on things. Go ahead and get some advice sooner rather than later.
Great. That's great advice right there, David. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's a busy time of year for you. Thank you for taking some time with us today.
The pleasure is definitely mine. You guys have a good weekend.
Thank you. My guest has been David Shuster of the Shuster Law Firm in Dallas. Reach out to David if you have questions about bankruptcy, specifically in taxes. You can find more information about David at askthelawyer.com. And that's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can let you know when the next episode is out. I'm Rob Rosenthal for askthelawyer.com.